So these were pieces I made for photographer Harrison, and he wanted to shoot them in the Hollywood Hills. And when he was in LA, he got in touch with a model, and they spoke, and they both really wanted to work together. And then got her measurements, and I created these pieces, and the piece is called Tranquility, and that's what this mint color represents. And all the ruffles are to represent tranquility, and it's meant to do with people coming back from the war. So with the color and the ruffles, that was why we named it that. It's actually 9 meters of fabric, and each set of ruffles, like 3 meters, ends up something like this. So it's very, very heavy. It probably doesn't look that heavy. It's very heavy. And then these are long, like ribbons that you can tie into a bow for a wrap skirt. So because I'd never met the model, and yes, I had her sizings, but it was much easier that I made it adjustable just in case, I don't know, she put on a bit of weight or lost some weight. And the same with the back. So the back of this top has the same adjustable ties around the back, and it makes it easier so that if they change sizes or they lose weight, put on weight, or just it gets like a bit hot and you don't want to be like suffocated. So that's why I've got adjustable straps. Over here, this is actually an upcycle I did for a Halloween costume that I actually now just wear out and about because I really like the look of it. It was inspired by, obviously, the Halloween bits here. I think it's actually an old Ted Baker jacket. Yeah, it's an old Ted Baker jacket. And this little stickman figure-esque person, I use in a lot of my paintings. Slightly Keith Haring inspired, but I really like it. Then you've got the Halloweeny bones, and then on the back, just a mix of all of it together. Yeah, I kind of like the bold line in it. It makes it pop, and yeah, it was a fun Halloween upcycle. But yeah, I didn't make it from scratch, just did that. So this is actually a toile of this jacket here, but I'll get onto that in a second. So it's essentially, rather than using calico for this, I used like a heavier, the closest thing I could find to wool. So I knew I was using wool for the real thing. And I have pockets in the sleeves, and they're like extended lantern sleeves. And they come down inside the little invisible pockets. Don't know what you put in there, but I was just experimenting on different places for pockets. And down here on both sides have the same style of pocket. They're inseam ones. And I actually removed one of them when I made the real thing because it's double-breasted, so when it crosses over, one of the pockets is completely removed. So that's why I removed that. Then there's a hood at the back, and this was I'll just move this over for the time being. This was the final piece for it. And this was made from 100% wool from Hainsworth. And then you got the pockets, like I was explaining over here, and the crossover, and one pocket down there at the bottom, and the lantern shape. And then I hand rusted and dyed all of this myself, which luckily turned out, and it stretched out and didn't shrink as badly as I had thought. But luckily with this type of wool, you don't need to like line it because it's kind of an extension of a duffel coat type thing, just a bit changed up a bit. And so I just hand stitched all around the edges, just so in case it didn't like fray. Not that it's fraying much. And my favourite part of the jacket is actually the back, because the hood lines up really nicely. I don't know why, but it's weirdly satisfying to me. And yeah, this was for the Industrial Nature project. and I really like hand dyeing my fabrics before I use them, but I probably will hand dye the whole thing first rather than cutting out the pieces so that it doesn't shrink with the heat from the rusting and the vinegar and the chemicals. So yeah, I was really, really happy with that, and it is very big, but I think it's a men's size that is like the biggest block we have at uni. And I took it out on the shoulders too, so it has like slightly drop shoulders. And then this was a dress made out of the offcuts of the wool. That's actually the back, but it comes round, and it's circular, and again doesn't need lining or anything, which gives me the freedom to create shapes like this, because it doesn't need any of that, and that's why you have the rawness of the literally just cut fabric, like not even hemmed or anything, comes down, and then rather than having darts at the front, I pleated it inward by the waist, so that when you wear it, the boobs will fill up here, and it'll still look shaped, but you won't have the like aggressive stitch marks that you can sometimes have when you do darts. And then it's also adjustable, so depending on what size you are, this bit comes round, so this will go round to the waist, and it will clip in to the back, depending on what size you are, and it just also, again, gives freedom for the model to wear whatever they want, and if they want a slightly baggier look, to wear a baggy look, or if they want it nice and tight, and whatever makes them feel good. So in terms of women's wear, I always make it slightly adjustable, because I've definitely felt like in the past, I've had problems with like finding the right clothes that fit, or like the only thing that does fit is corsets, because you can like adjust it to the right place. So I'd like to, when I do women's wear, I like to take this into consideration. But yeah, for menswear, it's much more in the detail for me, and yeah, that's about it, really. I think it's the fact, so for example with this one, the fact that you never know how it's fully going to come out, because it's all patchy, and no matter like different types of wire wool or iron filings or different types of like heaviness of it, when you roll it up it'll leave different prints. So I did this with quite a fine wire wool, so it gave more of a speckly effect. And I think it's the unpredictability with something like rusting, like not knowing what can come out, whether it's like beautiful shapes. Because you can also do it with objects. Let's say you found a really like chunky metal bolt, and it was a metal that would rust. You could like place them all over and like create shapes and patterns from these rusty objects, not just from rolling up wire wool. So I think that in terms of hand dyeing, I think rusting is one of the most beautiful ways, and it's not really used, mainly because humans are like don't like rust on their hands, and it's not really good for you. But in terms of clothing, once it's stained the clothes, you can wash it out as much as you want, and it will probably fade over years, but it won't irritate your skin. Well, I haven't found that it's irritated anybody's skin yet, which is good. But yeah, it's the unpredictability behind it. And I haven't done enough experimental work with placing large metal objects on fabrics and seeing how they do. So with the ruffles, I would create long strips, like long tubes of the satin, and then so maybe I'd say about 5 meters worth of a strip, and they're like maybe a couple inches wide. And then I'd turn them inside out, and then I'd have to press them all, making sure that the edges were flat and so they all stood the same shape. So when you did ruffle it, so I'd hand ruffle it together, sew through the middle, and then I'd lie it on the garment where I wanted it to be, and then I'd sew directly like over the ruffles so that it was holding the ruffles in place and tying it down with the same stitch so that you didn't have stitching in a place that you wouldn't want stitching, and it was all contained to the center of the ruffle, which actually made it made the size of the ruffle stand up more, which was a nice effect that I didn't know was going to happen, and it did, which was really, really nice. I think in terms of less harmful, the impact I'm doing, but like fashion is an industry where we can try and be sustainable as possible, but the most sustainable way of doing fashion is just everybody in a simple black t-shirt and black trousers or a white t-shirt. So there are so many sustainable brands out there which are doing incredible things and upcycling old fabrics and stuff. So in terms of upcycling, I loved upcycling this, and I want to try and get more into that. And to do with sizes, I think it is so important, because if you make the wrong size for a person and they're too slightly larger for the garment, they won't wear it. They'll probably be sat in the back of their cupboard for years, and then they'll never wear it. So in terms of adjustability in clothing, it will help, and maybe if they can grow or if they shrink, they can just adjust it and see if it makes them feel better. And my old boss, Mary Benson, she used to do a way of, in her dresses, the side seams would go up, and so that you could adjust it. You could take it to like your seamstress or the tailors, and they'd be able to let it out or take it in a way that it wouldn't affect the clothing. It was much easier to take in her dresses than other people's dresses, and that was something she was really sustainable. She was a great woman, and still is. She's not dead, she's alive. But yeah, so tricks like that I want to take into account more, but at the moment I'm just trying like ties and stuff like that.